My intention for today's class is that if you are watching this one for the first time, and I understand why you would, because at the end of the day, radical forgiveness is the practical application of dissolving the belief of separation in the subconscious mind. And I know for myself, if I was curious, I would potentially jump to this class first because I would want to know what is radical forgiveness. So my intention for today is that if you are joining for the first time, that this can be a standalone class. And yet, if you have watched the previous 6 classes, it will just take what we're doing today to a much deeper level. We ended our conversation last week talking about the body. And the body and pure non-duality are very interesting conversations because pure non-duality says only love is real. The body doesn't really exist. And yet we seem to have a body that's very, very real. And we experience emotions and challenges. And for many of us, our entire identity is wrapped up in this body. So where we ended our class last week is that who we are is not this body. I'm obviously not the first person to say that. We're not this body. This body is a temporary projection, a creation of our own mind. And there are 2 ways to look at the body, right? There are 2 ways to look at the body. If we look at the body through the lens of an idea in separation in which we believe we are the body, we will use the body in a particular way. We will use it to confirm our separation to ourselves. We will use it to attack others, to defend others. We will use it as an instrument to try and make ourselves feel better or worse, bigger or smaller. So if we look at the body and we use it through a belief system of fear, then we will have a relationship with this body and other bodies in a way that perpetuates our suffering. And yet there's another way to look at the body, and that is to see the body as a projection of our mind. And if we can learn to read and understand what we are witnessing and experiencing in the body, we can trace that back to the belief of separation. If we learn to work with the emotions and the feelings and the experiences and the behaviors and the thoughts that seem to come through this body, we can actually trace them back to the belief in separation and we can resolve it there. And love is going to work with the body in that way. So that's where we ended our conversation last week, talking about the body. Today we move into a class that is called the Forgiveness Revolution. I'm also going to highlight that we are talking about why it is so easy to hate and so hard to forgive. In order to talk about why it is so easy to hate and why it is so hard to forgive, and how projection and the body and the belief in separation all come together, we're going to need to define a couple of words again, because I know that some of you are starting this class for the first time. We need a language. We need a shared vocabulary. And I'm going to say a few things again and again and again. And if you have a different definition of the word that I'm going to use, then we're going to be speaking in 2 different universes. So today we're going to be talking about the ego. We use this term in our community as a term to identify a belief in separation, right? That's it, a belief. It's a thought form. It's an idea. It's an idea that is in our subconscious very, very deeply. And the belief in separation, like all beliefs, has a particular emotional experience attached to it. And the emotional experience that comes secondary to the belief in separation is guilt. And so the belief in separation, and what do I mean by separation? I mean separation from love, separation from source, separation from this moment now. The belief in separation leads to an experience of guilt because we believe somewhere subconsciously that we separated from love. We left love. We somehow attacked love and pulled apart from it. And we feel guilty about that. I'm going to talk about that today. So the ego, the belief in separation, and guilt are the same thing. So if I talk about guilt, I'm talking about the belief in separation, I'm talking about the ego. It's all one definition for this conglomerate of thought. It's a thought form, it's an idea, it's a story. More than anything, it's a story. And we're storytellers. And from this story of separation and feeling like we did something bad or wrong when we separated, which didn't actually happen, there's a whole lot of other beliefs that then branch off that. Well, something must be wrong with me. Maybe I'm a really bad person. I'm evil. I'm less than. I'm lacking something. And so all of the negative beliefs that stem from the belief in separation are also extensions of the ego structure. And that's how we use the term ego, right? It's a belief in separation. Because we aren't actually separate, none of us are separate from love, because we aren't actually separate, and it never really happened, then the ego isn't really a real thing. It didn't really happen. That's why we say the ego is an illusion. You can walk around thinking you're unworthy, and I use this example all the time. You can walk around thinking you're unworthy, and if you think it and you believe it to be true, you can create an experience of unworthiness, and it can feel so damn real, but it's not, because you were never unworthy. And that's what we mean when we talk about illusions. You can think it, you can create experience based on your thought, because we're creative, but it doesn't make it the truth. So the ego is not the truth. It's not the truth, but we have to talk about it because we have to see clearly the thought form. We have to look at the psychological architecture of the ego because it's the operating system that so many of us operate by, and our lives are the way they are because of that operating system. Now, the opposite of separation is oneness. And it's a weird thing from a particular perspective to say the opposite, because from the perspective of separation, there is an opposite, and that is oneness. But when you actually shift to oneness and you look back, there is no separation. There's no other, because it's oneness. And so the idea that it's separate only occurs when we're thinking through the ego. So if we're looking through the ego and we're talking about this, we could say the opposite of the ego, the opposite of the belief in separation is oneness. Oneness is not guilty, it's innocent. And so the opposite of guilt is innocence. But in reality, innocence is all there is. It's just that we think there's not. So we have the ego, which is guilt, which is separation, and we have oneness, which is love, which is innocence, which is the truth. Which is the truth of now. And eventually you're going to have experiences, whether that's today or whether that's already happened or whether that's going to happen tomorrow. You're going to start having experiences where you feel this beyond a shadow of a doubt, and you start to realize, remember, only love is real. So the philosophy that this whole teaching sits on is only love is real. It's just that we think that we're separate, and in that separation we create an experience of being guilty and a separate self. And so our deepest challenge is to actually wake up out of the delusion of our separation and remember the innocence and oneness of who we are. Right? That's the journey. Now we have to talk about why it is so unbelievably easy to hate, and specifically why it is so easy to hate love. And so this should be a very moving conversation. It's very moving once you see it. To the ego, even though it's not real, it wants to live. It wants to be real. It wants the story to continue. If the realization of your innocence is the ending of the belief in separation and your guilt, it is the death of the story of separation. It is the death of the ego. This, again, is not something that is new, right? Many people have talked about this, but they misinterpret it. Or even deeper, they misinterpret the way to make it from ego to love. And many people do psychological things that actually cause them to create more suffering for themselves with these teachings. And one of my deepest desires with sharing this was to clear up misperception around this path so that we don't hurt ourselves on the way to our freedom. So today we firstly have to look at the scaffolding. We have to look at the scaffolding of the ego, and we have to understand why on earth it's so terrified of love. And that is because to be innocent, to remember your innocence, to remember someone else's innocence, is the death of the story of separation. It's the ending. It's the ending of suffering. It's the ending of defense and attack. It's the ending of saga. It's the ending of drama. It's the ending of the world as you know it through the lens of the ego. And so the deepest secret that we all hold is that we are not afraid of fear. We're afraid of love. And this is the pinnacle of the conversation that we've been heading towards. We're actually afraid of love, especially if we identify with the ego. If we identify with the ego, we are terrified of love because love is our destruction. Innocence is our destruction. And so Marianne Williamson said this right at the beginning of her career, and she's been a student of the course for more than 4 decades now, and she's very well known for this one sentence. She said, "It is not our darkness that we are afraid of. It is our light." That is a really interesting thing to contemplate, because we can read a comment like that and be like, oh, cool, that's a fun slogan to put on a t-shirt. But the experience of that is, for many of us, terror. And it's actually an experience of terror. As we start to make it towards light, as we start to see the innocence within ourselves and others, something deep in the subconscious arises and goes to attack it. It goes to attack it. We see this in relationship all the time. And I think if you just contemplate the relationships you've been in, or even contemplate the relationships you've witnessed, or think about the friends that you've had who've talked about their experience in partnership, you will hear this, right? We long for love. The spirit that we are longs for love so deeply. It's all we want. I was 23 when I realized it is all that I wanted. I saw it. I saw the game. I realized everything that I was doing in my life was an roundabout attempt to hopefully one day get back to love. I truly believe it's all we want. Every longing, every desire, every feeling of I want that is actually a misplaced yearning to reconnect with, as the Course would call it, the Father, God, Creator, love, Source. We want to be back with that. We want it so much. So we have this longing within us to reconnect with love. Yet, if we believe that we are separate and we identify with an ego structure, we are just as terrified of it. And so the experience we have is, I want it so badly, but if you get close enough to me, I will destroy it. And a lot of our relationships are based on this dynamic. You want to be seen so deeply, yet if someone actually sees you, you will attack them. You want to be loved so much, but in the moment that somebody sees through your ego structure and says, I still love you, you do everything you can to convince them, I'm not lovable. I'm not lovable. If only you could see the darkness in me, you wouldn't love me. And so we're in this push-pull dynamic, right? We're in this push-pull dynamic where we want the love so much, and yet we attack it the closer it gets. And we don't even know why we do it. That's why we end up sitting with our friends going, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. I want love so badly. But anytime I start to feel that little bit of vulnerability, I bail in some way, shape, or form. This has happened throughout history from the beginning of time. And this is where the work and the understanding becomes extremely profound. Because the ego structure is one. Even the ego is one. It's one mind. It's collective. It's our one collective mind. There isn't 8 billion different egos. There is just one belief in separation playing out through, at this moment in time, what looks like 8 billion different perspectives of people. But ultimately, we're all connected to the one mind, which means that anything that the ego has ever done to anybody else is in our subconscious because it's connected. So Every hurtful thing the ego has ever done is in our subconscious because we're connected. There has been numerous times on the planet in which a being woke up. A person, right? A person incarnated. They turned up as a person, a human, in the illusion. So I'm gonna dance between what's real and what's the illusion. But a person came in, they incarnated in a body, and they did the work to resolve the guilt from their own mind. They did it. Now, whether they did that 2,500 years ago, like Yeshua did, or whether they're doing it 100 years ago, and there's other people who've done this since then. There have been beings who cleared the guilt from their mind, and they remembered their own innocence. And in the remembrance of their own innocence, they remembered everybody else's innocence. And it was so threatening to the ego structure of others that the ego, and I'm going to be very careful about this, the ego tried to kill it, tried to destroy it by killing the body of that being. It has happened many times. Many, many times. I was listening to or reading a book by Neil Donald Walsh many years ago. He wrote the Conversations with God books. And there was this dialogue, this conversation happening between Neil Donald Walsh and God. And Neil Donald Walsh was saying, why don't you send us more teachers? Why don't you send us more angels? Why don't you send us more beings who've remembered themselves? And God says, I have. Many times. You've killed them all. You've killed them all. You've killed all the bodies of the beings. And so we have this secret within our subconscious, and that secret is that we feel guilty for attacking innocence. And it mirrors the original guilt that we felt because we felt that we separated from love and we attacked love when we separated from it. And it's a bizarre old thing because we want to go back so much, but we're so afraid of going back because now that we created a separate identity, we know if we go back, we'll be annihilated. So we want it, but we keep attacking it, and we hold guilt for that. We hold guilt in ourselves for that. So this happens, this has happened from, we have to start seeing as our collective history as one thing, Because even though you might say, oh, well, I don't believe in past lives, or I don't know if I was there with Christ, it doesn't matter because the ego that we are all a part of has attempted to destroy innocence so many times throughout history. And we have memory of that. And we hold guilt for it. And that's what we are so guilty of. It's what we feel so guilty of deep down. And it mirrors in our lives today. Because anytime we attack innocence, another person, we hold on to guilt for doing that subconsciously. And yet we can't help it. Because when love gets close, if we don't remember who we are, we will attack it. So we're in this weird psychological bind. And that's the guilt that we are attempting to resolve. And it is the reason that the ego attacks innocence and tries to kill it in other people, in ourselves, in any being who has entered the planet and remembered their own truth. I was sharing this yesterday in our deeper mentorship program. I was saying that when you're ready to wake up, you have to do this for yourself. This is for you. This is because you reached the end of the story and you say, I don't want to be stuck in my suffering anymore. I don't want to be in these psychological loops. I don't want to judge. I don't want to attack. I don't want to defend. I want to be free. And you're ready for that. The ego has a very strange idea of enlightenment. It sees it as another attachment, another achievement. It's it's a goal. And the only reason that the ego has goals is because it thinks it's going to get something if it does it. Like, oh, if I become enlightened, I will be so special. I'll be so valuable. I'll be validated. Maybe the ego thinks if I become enlightened, everyone will love me. Everyone will see me. Everyone will like me. Sometimes the ego is so bizarre that it's like, if I reach enlightenment, I'll be able to manifest whatever I want. I'll make all the money and I'll get all the women and all the men and whatever. That's not how this works. Your enlightenment is it's not a goal for starters. It's the remembrance of your innocence. And it's the remembrance of everyone's innocence. And that's what frees you of guilt. It's something that happens psychologically. That's all enlightenment is. You wake up out of the delusion of separation. You can do it right now. Right now you can do it. You just wake up when you're ready and you go, oh my God, I'm innocent. I've always been innocent. I was never the ego. I was never the belief in separation, and I never attacked anybody. I am the spirit. I am the perfect creation of my creator. And we all are, and we never hurt each other. That is the realization, and it is instant freedom. If that happens, the experience is heaven, right? You just entered heaven. You return to heaven. But the ego structures of other people who haven't remembered that yet will see that as a great threat. And so you can wake up and the ego structure of other people can seem to hate you more. So it doesn't result in the ego's idea of getting validation and security and control from other people or from this illusory world. If the ego understood what enlightenment really was, it would say, no way, no, that's not what I'm into. I'm into manifestation of what I want. Teach me how to manipulate the laws of reality so that I can manipulate others to make myself feel whole and complete. That I'm into. But if you tell me that true enlightenment is the realization of my innocence, and that comes along with realizing everybody else's innocence, fuck that. So it's not your ego that's going to do this work. It's the pulling of your spirit. And you do it for yourself. And you know by the time that you get there, because you've understood how the ego structure functions, that when you reach your freedom, when you remember your freedom and your innocence, the egos of other people will not like you. And that is okay. That is okay, because you will realize that part of your job is to continue seeing their innocence even if they don't like you. And when you see the ego attack you, you do not defend because you've remembered who you are. And I'm going to share this because it was so profound for me. And for some of you, it might hit. And I'm going to just remind everybody who's been following me on this journey, I don't come from a Christian background. I didn't grow up with Jesus being a religious figure that I was praying to or talking to. Actually, it was a Baha'i. My parents were Baha'i, so many of you may not know that religion. It's a Persian religion, and I used to think of it as the world peace religion. Actually, all our temples had 9 doors because there was a door for every one of the major religions. But I even left that when I was younger because I didn't want to be in any type of organized religion. I could smell that something was off. I didn't have any interest in organized religion. Spirituality, God, not at all. My reconnection with this path was because I wanted to be free. And I got to a moment in myself where I recognized all I want is love. And if there is something that ends the suffering and reunites me with that, I'll do everything to know it, no matter how weird or strange I look. So now as I talk about Christ, I talk about it from that perspective. I talk about it from my personal journey of wanting to be free. And I didn't know a lot about the historical figure because I didn't grow up Christian. But I've read something very recently and I'm like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So listen deeply with your heart here. When Yeshua came to the planet, just like we all seem to be here, right? He did the work to free the guilt from his mind, just like some of you are going to commit to doing now. And he did it. He did it. He remembered the beautiful mind of God as his own. He saw clearly. And the ego structure of the people at the time, which is our ego, doesn't matter what time we're born because it's one mind, attacked the innocence within him. The ego has its wires crossed. It believes that the guiltless are guilty, and that if you proclaim your innocence, then that is worthy of death. And we have decided that many, many times throughout history. And so in Jesus proclaiming, I am the truth, I am the way, I am the innocence that I always was, and you are that too. The ego condemned the body to death. Now, of course, the ego doesn't realize that the body isn't the person, so they think they're killing the person. They put him up on the cross and they crucified him. But guess what happened in that moment? Yeshua, who had become the Christ, which we all will when we remember the truth, didn't judge. He didn't hate. He didn't defend. He didn't attack. He kept looking, eyes wide open, and saw the innocence even in the people who were trying to kill the body. And the only way he could do that was because he remembered, I'm not this body. I am not a separate self. I am the eternal innocence. And he knew that. So even as the bodies of seemingly separate people were destroying the body, he knew, I'm not that. Because he didn't judge in that moment. And his mind is our mind because it's only one. He carved the pathway for that to be possible for all of us. And it only takes one. It only takes one person to remember, I am innocent, and to truly not judge, reach their enlightenment for it to be possible for all of us, because we're one mind. And so when I guess certain people in the Christian or Catholic faith say, you have to follow Jesus or let Jesus take you, there's kind of a metaphor in that, and I think it's deeply misunderstood. What it means is that you need to listen to this, find the part of your own mind, your sane mind, that already knows the truth. It's already done. It's already done. It's already within you. Because if he did it, now we all have access. And hundreds of people have done it since, possibly thousands. And so it's like having a neural pathway open. And it's in all of our minds. And now all we need to do is find it. We don't have to do all the work. We just have to find it and remember, oh my God, that's the sane part of my mind. It is possible. Now let me bring this into practical daily application. It is possible when the people in my life seem to be attacking me, it is possible for me to find my sane mind and realize that this body cannot be attacked. And what is attacking me is not who they are. And I can see through the eyes of my sane mind, love, Christ mind, whatever name you want to call it, I can see the truth. And I will not judge them and I will not attack them. I will love them the way that Christ did when the people seem to attack his body. And that's what ends our suffering. Now, we do not need to be physically crucified, but every time that we attack another person, we are crucifying ourselves. Every time we judge another person, we are crucifying ourselves, because that is what the symbol of the crucifix was. It was a symbol of our own attack. It was a symbol of our own ego's attack on innocence. And when we do that, we crucify ourselves. But the way out is to remember, you are not the ego. You are not the body, the mind, the emotions, the belief in separation. That's not who you are. It's a thought form. And as long as you are identifying with it, you will be suffering. But all you need to do is make the switch and find your sane mind and remember, I'm already free. I actually never judged. So this is the work. That's a very deep understanding. It's hit me very deeply this week. And I think that's where extreme gratitude comes from for anybody who's walked the path before you, because everybody who walks the path before you carves the way in your own mind and makes it easier for you to access your sane mind. What does that mean? Love. Next layer. Back to the ego. The ego structure remains alive through guilt. As I said before, I should use the same hands. I said the ego of love. The ego structure lives on guilt, right? So it has one job. As long as it's alive in your mind, as long as you believe you're separate, it has one job. One. Make you guilty. Keep you thinking that you're separate and guilty. That's it. Keep you looking for evidence of your own imperfection, your own failure. Keep you focused on that. The ego wants you to be guilty. That's a weird thing to hear, but you should actually understand it, because to remember your innocence is the death of the ego. So the ego wants you to be guilty. So think of guilt as the ego's drug. And it loves it. It really wants you to stay here in guilt. And yet love is calling you home and saying, actually, there is an ocean of love. It's all we really are. And the only thing that you have to do is be willing to drop the illusion, reach out for love, and let it pull you over here. Let it pull you, right? But the ego is saying, no, 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 no. That's bad. That's your death. That is not the truth. You are guilty. You are bad. And we need to look at the way that the ego maintains this story.